Hi everyone, welcome to my week 4 presentation, Ethical Analysis. The ethical situation I'll be talking about has to do with wastewater treatment. In this particular case, we're going to be focusing on the very last step of wastewater treatment, which is disinfection. Before we're able to discharge any water into receiving bodies of waters, in this instance the Santa Ana River, we first have to disinfect and kill all the pathogens in the water before releasing it to the environment in order to protect downstream aquatic life and users. So here's a picture. So at the very beginning in red, we have a large dose of chlorine, liquid chlorine like bleach, into the channel, and as it travels down, the residual or the bleach is getting used up, so there's less of it at the very back end. So according to the state, we have to maintain a certain CT, and this value is calculated by chlorine residual multiplied by how long the water is in contact with the chlorine residual, so the contact time. So according to the state or regulations, the lowest CT value that we're able to have at any one given time is 450 milligrams per minute per liter. So if it drops below that, we're in violation, and we have to eventually pay a fine for however long the duration we were below the set standard. So the situation here I'll describe is, okay, I'm doing an operator's doing the rounds. They're going to this section of the plant at the very back end. There's these analyzers, and every day we have our handheld to test against the analyzers that's tied into SCADA to make sure that they're accurate. So operator goes and does a test and finds out that the actual residual, even though like it's reading 3 parts of bleach, on the handheld it's actually reading 1 part. So it's reading a false 2 parts higher than what the actual residual is. So that means that the CT at that point in time is going to drop dramatically. So in this instance, it was barely hovering around 800 milligrams per liter, but because of the drop in residual, it's going to drop way below the 450, causing the treatment plant to be in violation. So in this instance, if I was the operator who came across this situation, what are my duties? One set of duties are to the organization itself. As a wastewater operator that works under the organizational umbrella, my main job is to maintain equipment, run treatment process, and try to stay in compliance at all times. But as I also have another set of duty as a public employee to the public itself. So I need to be able to complete treatment processes before the water is discharged to receiving bodies of water. I need to make sure we are always disinfecting properly. There's a transparency in the way I conduct myself and my rounds, and accurate reporting. So I have a duty to be honest and make sure I have into consideration, downstream aquatic life, environment, and the people who are using or in contact with that receiving body of water. Probably the first ethical approach that comes to mind when confronting the situation is consequentialist approach. So if I was an operator who came across this situation, right away I know I need to calibrate down. I know that this is going to cause a CT to drop below the 450 required minimum by the state, and I know we're going to start violating. So one of the first things that pops into my head is the consequences for doing this, for doing the right thing. My boss is going to get upset. We're violating at this point. Is the higher managers are they going to get upset in the district? Are they going to want to blame somebody? Like, was the operator before me not checking in on the residual? Did they not calibrate when they were supposed to? So there's all these little factors that start coming into the back of your mind when thinking about the actions of, actually causing the treatment plant to violate. And so that moves you over to like the problem solving model where, we already went over the description. Now you're going through the analysis on what needs to be done, what can be done, your few options, and finally making a decision, and basing your decision on ethical, moral grounds, even though you know there might be some consequences and you're going to upset your boss and upper management, but you're doing the right thing in this situation as an operator. You have a duty to the public service for public health overall. And then another form of ethical approaches is justice. So there's retributive justice, where the state, after we violate, can come in and say, okay, you guys need to pay a fine for violating a certain amount of time. Or if it was serious enough, or it was gross negligence to be found, then somebody could go to jail. But one of the more common forms of justice in this industry is restorative. So instead of just making the treatment plant pay a fine, they'll make them use that money to upgrade their system, either buy an extra analyzer to prevent this from happening in the future, or upgrade equipment. So there's with this restorative justice, it's a more benefit for both the victim, the offender, and the community as a whole. An alternative approach or way to think of this ethical situation is contractarianism by Thomas Hobbes. So we have the EPA sets standards for proper wastewater treatment quality. We have the Clean Water Act. That's, the law of the land when it comes to treating water and providing safe water to the environment and to the people of the community. And we have these NPDES, which are National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. So any treatment plant that has to discharge their treated water into any body of water in the U.S. has to apply for these permits, and they have to comply with them. So there's contracts. We agree that we're going to disinfect and do everything properly. So if anything does happen, we need to be honest and comply with these contracts. We have reached the end of my presentation. Thank you for watching, and hope everyone's having a great week.